Most homeowners do not realize their garage may already be lowering what buyers are willing to pay. Appraisers and buyers think of it differently. 10 garage mistakes that are quietly lowering your home value. Starting with number 10. Number 10. Garage repairs buyers use to negotiate the price down. Most sellers never think about the garage when they are preparing a property for sale. They repaint the hallway, tidy the garden, refresh the kitchen, and assume the garage will look after itself. But buyers and their surveyors walk into the garage looking for exactly the kind of deferred maintenance that justifies a lower offer. And garages, more than almost any other part of the property, tend to accumulate it. Here is why this matters at the negotiating table specifically. A buyer who finds a problem in the kitchen or a bedroom has one concern. A buyer who finds several visible maintenance issues in the garage, a cracked door panel, a broken spring, a section of render that has come away from the wall, a gutter that is pulled from the fascia and been left, reads the garage as a space the seller has not looked after. And that reading does not stay in the garage. It becomes the frame through which the rest of the property gets assessed. I was involved in a sale where the buyer's surveyor walked the garage and noted 4 separate items: a cracked panel in the door, a section of missing mortar at the base of the rear wall, a disconnected downpipe from the roof above, and a ceiling light fitting that was hanging loose from its backplate. None of these were serious structural issues. All of them were visible, and all of them were avoidable. The buyer used the survey report to request a price reduction that was significantly more than the combined cost of fixing everything. Walk your garage before any viewing with a fresh eye, ideally with someone who has not seen it in a while, because familiarity makes problems invisible. Fix the things that are broken, reconnect what has come away, replace what is cracked or missing. Small repairs in a garage cost very little. The same small repairs, spotted by a buyer's surveyor and listed in a report, become negotiating ammunition that costs considerably more. Number 9 is a change that homeowners make, believing it improves the property, and that appraisers assess very differently from how sellers expect. Number 9. A boundary wall or fence in the garage sightline that has not been maintained. The boundary that runs along the rear or side of a garage, the fence panel, the wall, the gate, sits directly in the sightline of anyone standing in or near the garage during a viewing. And the condition of that boundary tells buyers and appraisers something that most sellers never connect to the garage itself. A fence that is leaning, has panels missing, or rotated out of line, or has timber visibly rotting at the base, looks like a maintenance liability the buyer is being handed. It sits in the frame of the garage viewing and pulls the overall impression of the property down with it. Buyers and appraisers assessing the garage as a functional space are also taking in everything immediately around it. A well-presented garage beside a deteriorating boundary reads as a property where attention has been selective. Some things maintained, others quietly left. That inconsistency creates doubt about what else has only been partially looked after. I walked a property with an agent preparing for sale where the garage itself was in decent condition, but the fence along the left boundary, clearly visible through the open door and from the driveway, had 3 blown panels stacked against the wall rather than reinstated. They had been there for 2 seasons. The homeowner had stopped seeing them. 2 buyers mentioned the fence in their viewing feedback without being asked. Replacing fallen or damaged fence panels is one of the lowest cost, highest visibility improvements available before a sale. The garage does not exist in isolation during a viewing. What surrounds it is part of the assessment. Number 8 affects the appraisal report in a section most homeowners never think about, and it is one of the most avoidable items on any pre-sale checklist. Number 8. Unpermitted electrical work that shows up on inspection. An inspection report that flags unpermitted electrical work in the garage is one of the most reliable ways to introduce doubt into a sale at the worst possible moment. The moment electrical work is flagged, buyers stop seeing a garage upgrade and start seeing paperwork, delays, and unexpected cost. Here is what that looks like in practice. The buyer's lender gets notified. They may require the work to be certified before releasing funds. Certification means a licensed electrician assessing the work, and in many cases exposing wiring to verify it meets code. If it does not, it needs to be brought up to standard before anything moves forward. The timeline disappears, and the seller is covering remediation costs under time pressure they did not budget for. I spoke with a homeowner who had added a sub-panel to the garage 3 years before selling to support a workshop setup. The work was done by a qualified friend and was technically sound, but no permit had been pulled. The inspection flagged it. The buyer's lender required certification. The electrician who came to certify found 2 junction points that needed bringing up to current code. The remediation cost exceeded $2,000 and pushed the closing back by 3 weeks. Pull permits for all electrical work in the garage. It adds a modest cost at the point of installation. It removes a category of inspection risk that causes completely disproportionate disruption at sale. Number 7 is something most sellers never think to check before a viewing, and it does more damage to buyer confidence than almost any visual detail in the garage. Number 7. Uneven garage flooring buyers. Notice immediately. Most homeowners stop noticing the garage floor years before buyers do. Hairline cracks, patch sections, uneven settlement, oil staining that has penetrated deeply into the slab. These are small details to the owner, but buyers read them as long-term neglect. A floor that looks uneven immediately raises questions about movement, moisture, and whether larger issues sit underneath the garage structure. Here is why the floor carries more weight during an appraisal than most sellers expect. A surveyor assessing the garage will always look at the slab. Cracking that follows a diagonal line suggests differential settlement, the slab moving unevenly beneath the surface. Cracking near the edges suggests frost heave or inadequate base preparation at installation. A patch section that has been filled and repainted differently from the surrounding area suggests a previous problem that was addressed visually rather than structurally. Each of these observations goes into a report. Each one gives a buyer something to point to. I assessed a garage before a sale where the homeowner had filled a significant crack with repair compound 2 years earlier. The fill had held, but had shrunk slightly and was sitting fractionally below the surrounding concrete level. The color match was close, but not exact. When the buyer's surveyor walked the floor, he knelt down and ran his hand across the filled section. It went into the report as evidence of previous movement with a recommendation for further investigation. The buyer requested a structural engineer's assessment as a condition of proceeding. What the seller thought was a fixed problem became a condition on the sale. Walk your garage floor before listing and look at it the way a stranger would. Fill active cracks properly with a flexible polyurethane sealant rather than a rigid repair compound. Rigid fills shrink and crack again. Address oil staining with a specialist degreaser before any viewings take place. And if there is significant uneven settlement across the slab, get a professional opinion before a buyer's surveyor finds it first. Knowing what you are dealing with before the sale puts you in control of how it is presented. Finding out during a survey puts the buyer in control of how it is used. Number 6 is one of the most specific appraisal red flags in any attached garage, and most homeowners are completely unaware it applies to them. Number 6. A door from the garage to the house that does not meet fire code. A simple internal garage door can quietly become a problem if it is the wrong type, especially during inspection. In an attached garage, the door connecting the garage to the living space needs to be fire rated. Most homeowners assume whatever door is there already meets that standard. Many do not, particularly where a previous owner replaced it with a standard hollow core interior door because it was cheaper and easier to source. Here is what that means at the point of sale. A home inspector who identifies a non-compliant door between an attached garage and the living space is required to flag it. The flagged item goes to the buyer. Their solicitor or lender may require remediation before the transaction proceeds. A fire-rated door is not expensive, typically $200 to $400 plus fitting. But an unexpected requirement at the point of sale, on a timeline that does not leave room for it, is leverage the seller handed over for no reason. I was involved in a sale where the previous owner had replaced the internal garage door with a hollow core interior door during a refurbishment 12 years earlier. The house had changed hands once since, without it being flagged. The inspector on the current sale flagged it. The buyer asked for a price reduction to cover remediation. It was resolved, but it added a week to the process and a cost the seller had not planned for. Check the internal door in an attached garage before listing. If it is not fire rated, replace it before the property goes on the market. It is a small cost that removes a specific and avoidable inspection risk. Number 5 is a permanent alteration that sellers make for convenience and that buyers consistently factor into their offer as a liability. Number 5. Removing the garage door and infilling the opening. Some homeowners remove the garage door entirely, bricking up or boarding over the opening as part of a conversion, a storage upgrade, or simply because the mechanism failed and removal felt easier than replacement. To the seller, it can feel practical. The opening is closed, the space is more enclosed, the garage is easier to use as a room. To a buyer, it is the removal of one of the core amenities of the property. Here is how appraisers process a garage that no longer has a functioning door. The garage cannot function as a garage. The space it occupies counts, in most cases, as unconditioned square footage rather than as a garage. The premium that comes with having a garage in most markets disappears, and the infilled opening, particularly if it does not quite match the surrounding elevation, reads immediately as a modification rather than a feature. I worked with a homeowner who had infilled a single garage opening 4 years before selling. The render had been color matched, but was a slightly different tone from the original. The line of the original opening was visible in raking light. Every buyer who viewed the property asked what had been there. The question itself, what was there, reframed the entire front elevation as something that had been altered rather than something original. If the door mechanism needs replacing, replace the mechanism. The door is doing work for the property value that a solid wall simply cannot replicate. Number 4 is a change that feels reasonable from inside and reads as something quite different when you look at the house from the street. Number 4, a garage window added in the wrong position. Adding a window to a garage is not inherently a problem. Natural light in a workspace is a genuine improvement, and a well-positioned garage window can make the interior a much more pleasant place to spend time. The problem is when the window is added without thinking about how it looks from outside, positioned where it was convenient for the interior rather than where it makes sense on the wall. A badly placed garage window often tells buyers the same thing immediately. This was added for convenience, not for quality. A window cut into the side of a garage elevation at an awkward height, slightly off-center, in a size and style that does not relate to any other window on the property. To most buyers, it immediately looks like something added later, without much thought for how the house actually looks from outside. It disrupts the visual coherence of the elevation in a way that is difficult to correct without removing the window entirely. Here is what it signals from the street. This home has been altered piecemeal, and piecemeal alterations make buyers and appraisers look more carefully at what was done and whether permits were involved, because a window added informally suggests other work may have been approached the same way. I assessed a property where a previous owner had added a glazed unit to the side elevation at a height driven by where the workbench inside sat. The glazing was single rather than double, in a frame style that matched nothing else on the property and positioned too low to sit comfortably on the wall. The inspector flagged the absence of any record of the addition. The buyer used it as a lever. Any addition to the garage elevation should be assessed from outside first. If a window cannot be positioned where it genuinely relates to the exterior, the interior benefit rarely justifies the disruption it creates on the elevation. Number 3 is the most consistently overlooked issue in garages being prepared for sale, and it is one that shows up on inspection reports regularly. Number 3, standing water or poor drainage around the garage perimeter. Water that pools around the garage after rain on the driveway apron against the garage wall base in the gap between the slab and the adjacent surface is one of the most consistent sources of appraiser concern and buyer hesitation on any property. The problem is not just the water. It is what standing water implies. Poor drainage suggests either the original groundworks were not done correctly or that the surrounding surfaces have shifted in ways that have changed how water moves. Either way, water is going somewhere it should not, and over time, that has consequences. When water pools against the garage wall base, a buyer or appraiser sees a potential route for moisture to enter the structure, a surface that is not draining away from the building the way it should, a stain line on the lower wall that says this has been happening for a while, and in colder climates, a freeze risk, water trapped against masonry that expands in winter and damages the material from the outside in. I worked with a homeowner who had a persistent pooling issue at the base of the garage side wall after heavy rain. He had managed it for years by sweeping the water away when it got bad. When the property was inspected pre-sale, the inspector noted staining on the lower garage wall and flagged drainage as a concern. The buyer requested a drainage assessment as a condition of proceeding. Standing water is almost always resolvable without major works. A regraded surface, a channel drain at the right point, or a simple change to the downpipe routing can redirect water entirely. Address it before listing, and it disappears from the inspection report. Leave it, and it becomes a negotiating point that arrives at exactly the wrong moment. Number 2 affects the appraisal comparison directly, and most sellers have no idea their garage is being compared against a standard they have not met. Number 2, a garage that cannot be used to park a standard vehicle. Appraisers and buyers assess garages against their primary function. Vehicle storage. A garage that cannot physically fit a standard vehicle, regardless of how it is currently being used, gets assessed as a compromised garage rather than a full one. The causes vary. Permanent fixtures across the end wall that reduce the effective depth. A workbench projecting far enough into the parking zone that a car cannot fully enter with the door closed. Posts that narrow the usable width. Low-hanging beams that cut the effective height. Here is what this means for the valuation. A property listed as having a single garage is being compared against other properties with single garages. If the comparable properties have garages that fit a vehicle and yours does not, your garage is not contributing the same value. The appraiser notes the discrepancy and it affects the comparison. I worked with a homeowner whose garage had a built-in storage unit across the end wall that reduced the internal depth from 20 feet to 16 feet. 16 feet will not take a full-size pickup or a large SUV with room to close the door behind it. The appraiser noted the reduced functionality. The valuation came in below what the homeowner had expected. Before listing, check whether a standard family vehicle can park fully inside with the door closed. If it cannot, work out what is preventing that, and consider whether it can be removed or repositioned. A garage that works as a garage gets valued as one. A garage that does not gets valued as something less. Number 1 is the mistake that affects value most broadly because it changes what category your property competes in altogether. Number 1, having no garage at all because it was converted without a replacement. A fully converted garage, one where the entire space has been absorbed into the living area and no garage remains on the property, removes the home from consideration for a significant portion of buyers before they have seen a single room. Buyers who need a garage are not flexible on this. A family needing secure vehicle storage, someone who works with tools and equipment, a household with multiple vehicles. These buyers move on before they have assessed anything else about the property. It is simply not in their search criteria. Here is how this affects the valuation specifically. A property is compared against similar properties in the same market. If comparable properties have garages and yours does not, your property either gets compared against a lower value set of comparables, properties without garages, or the absence gets reflected as a deduction from what the home would otherwise achieve. Either way, the seller usually loses negotiating power. and it is not easy to reverse. Reinstating a converted garage, rebuilding the structure, reopening the elevation, reinstating the door is a significant construction project that costs considerably more than most homeowners anticipate. I was involved in a valuation discussion where a homeowner who had converted her double garage into a large open-plan kitchen extension 9 years earlier was preparing to sell. The extension was genuinely beautiful, but she had no garage. Every agent who valued the property said the same thing. The kitchen is wonderful, but you have lost your garage, and the buyers who need one will not consider it. She sold for a price that reflected a property without a garage in a street where most properties had one. The lesson is not that garage conversions are always wrong. It is that a full conversion changes the buyer pool for your property permanently. Before committing to any conversion that removes the garage entirely, understand what proportion of buyers in your market require one, because those buyers will never make an offer, regardless of how good everything else is. Which one of these is affecting your property right now? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If this helped, subscribe. More like this every week. I will see you in the next one.